Good morning and welcome back to Admit One with me, your host, Jonathan Kubiak. Today, we will be joined by Ruth Reynolds, a current senior at today's featured college, Colgate University. But first, let's take a look at today's news, starting with today's big number 42%. This is the amount of United States private colleges that have been found to give an admissions boost to direct relatives of alumni. In public schools, this figure is just 6%. The Biden administration is proposing spending $62 billion to improve graduation rates at higher education institutions with a high proportion of lower income students. As part of the American Families Plan, this initiative aims to reduce the average amount of time it takes to complete a four-year bachelor's degree, which, despite the name, often takes much closer to 6 years than to 4. A survey performed at UCLA found that while 90% of incoming freshmen believe that they will meet this benchmark in just 4 years, less than half of them complete it in less than 6. In Japan, the National Endowment Fund has struggled to find more than a single fund manager before its expected launch. Despite $90 billion in funding and strong support from new Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, the fund has failed to find the requisite talent to bring Japanese higher education up to the standards that have been set by higher education institutions in the United States and the United Kingdom. Sho Ito, the Deputy Director of the Cabinet Office's Bureau of Science, Technology, and Innovation, notes that much of the difficulty in finding talent to manage the fund is due to the Japanese government's inability to offer a competitive salary. In the ongoing Varsity Blues trial, the first two parents in the college admissions scandal have now been found guilty before a federal jury. Gamal Abdelaziz, age 64, and John Wilson, age 62, are the first parents in the scheme to be convicted by a federal jury on all charges related to the scandal. According to a spokesperson from the Massachusetts District of the United States Attorney's Office, they will be sentenced in the short term. That is all for Monday's news. Stay tuned for our conversation with Ruth Reynolds, a current senior at Colgate University. Thank you very much, and we will see you tomorrow. All right, everyone, welcome back to Admit One, presented by CollegePass. I'm your host, Jonathan Kubiak, and today we are lucky enough to be joined by Ruth Reynolds, a current senior at Colgate University. Ruth, thank you so much for coming on the show, and welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So before we get into your experience at Colgate, I wanted to go back a little bit further to when you were in high school and when you were considering, which school you wanted to go to. What were you doing extracurricularly, academically, that you feel prepared you to get into Colgate and to have the excellent experience that I'm sure you've had there thus far?
So I was very involved. I went to Ride Country Day, and I was very involved in extracurriculars. I was definitely part of different sports teams. I was part of the sailing team, field hockey, and I actually was doing I was a ski coach for an adaptive program up at Wyndham. So I was definitely very involved in terms of extracurriculars. I also was part of the news. I was a news editor at Ride Country Day, and I played the trumpet, so in the band, which was definitely fun. So I guess that having all those extracurriculars, I knew that my best shot was to get into a fairly competitive liberal arts school. I had good ACT scores. I got a 31 on my ACT, but I was also an A and B student at Ride Country Day. So I thought that my kind of application was definitely enhanced by this extracurricular activity. And in terms of kind of state colleges or, universities, I didn't think that my scores or my grades, I guess, were enough to get me into those places that I wanted to be. So I definitely decided, okay, well, I want to go to a liberal arts school because I think that's my best shot, I guess.
Hmm.
And also, I just really liked the idea of a small school because Rye Country Day was so small. And so I was looking at kind of Colby, Bates, um, even Wake Forest, which is a little bit bigger, but kind of along the same lines as Colgate. But I ultimately chose Colgate because I liked that it was a little bigger than most of the liberal arts schools, but not so much bigger that it was way different than them, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, and then I also wanted kind of a very social atmosphere. And I was worried that liberal arts schools wouldn't give that to me. But I had read a lot about Colgate and I found out that it is a very social school. So ultimately, that is why I chose Colgate. And when I did, I was all in on that school. So yeah.
Gotcha. And the extracurriculars that you mentioned are all like they're all over the place. You sound like you did so much. Like, did you continue doing any or all of those things once you got to college, or was that kind of like this was a means to an end in order to get into university, and now that I've gotten that accomplished, I don't need to do this stuff anymore?
I mean, honestly, it was kind of a means to an end. Again, just because I knew I, have a lot of respect for liberal arts schools, and I knew that they were more looking for kind of a well-rounded student in terms of that, whereas schools like USC, I don't know, Chapel Hill, all of these schools, they kind of just look, it's so big that they don't really, or from what I understand, curriculars that these students have, it's really the liberal arts schools that take the time to kind of just know the student in some ways.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess that was kind of ultimately, yeah, why I did a lot of these extracurriculars. And I do wish that I did it more at Colgate, because it was enjoyable, it wasn't just all for college. Like I love sailing. I wouldn't have done that. I would have done that anyway, even if it wasn't for college. Trumpet was kind of something my mom really wanted me to do. So yeah, I dropped that. But I do wish I did it more at Colgate. Funny enough, the reason why I went to Colgate was for this social atmosphere.
Hmm.
And I think I got a little bit too sucked into it in some ways. Um, in some ways where it wasn't great in terms of that. And so yeah, I do wish I did more of it. But I kind of didn't, which that's not a reflection on Colgate as much as I think it's just a reflection on
Personal
what I
choice.
wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I
Mhm.
wanted out of college. But I do wish, because the social scene is so strong there, it's
Mhm.
it can really suck you in. So
Mhm. From my understanding, Colgate is, and as you've described, a very small, like tight knit community. So could you go into a little bit more detail about exactly what that social scene looks like? Is it Greek life dominated? Is it a bar scene? Is it clubs and student activities? What about uh, Colgate's community is really what like fosters this environment?
yeah, so Colgate's about 2,800 kids. And so it is really small. By your senior year, even your junior year, you definitely know it, most people on campus. But it is kind of social circles, um, where I don't know. It's friend groups in a lot of ways, but it is dominated by frat and sororities. That is kind of where the social scene revolves around. Um, and personally, I was so excited about that idea going into Colgate. Um, and now that I'm a senior, it's not something that I really value, if I'm going to
Hmm.
be honest. I think it's in some ways too much a part of Colgate's campus. And, in high school, I always loved to have a really good time. I always loved going out and stuff. But I just think with Colgate, it's almost a little bit too much work hard, play hard for me personally. That's what definitely the atmosphere is.
Mm-hmm.
The campus revolves around sororities and fraternities, I would say. But there's 2 bars on campus, really. And they're really fun and stuff, but it's definitely different. It was different for me to be going to a school that's pretty much in the middle of nowhere, I love the town though, because it really is a collegey town, it's cute. There's nice little places to get food. And yeah, my reasoning is I wasn't going to live in any rural area at any other time in my life. So I thought, okay, well, cool, because it's in this college town and I'm not going to live here again. And also being kind of in an isolated place somewhat, it makes all the students really close to each other, just both location wise and on a personal level, because there's not much else that there's not many places you can go, whereas I know with other colleges that are in the city, my friend said, oh well, I could walk down a street and there's a kid my age and I don't know, does he go to my school, does he not? So I do like that aspect about Colgate. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, you
Yeah.
explained a lot of the play hard aspect of work hard, play hard. I want to get a little bit more into kind of the nitty gritty of the academia. Well, first off, what are you studying at Colgate?
I'm studying art history.
Gotcha.
So,
Would you say
and
that
poli
that's
sci minor.
in a poli-sci minor? Would you say that
Yeah.
that's a pretty common? I know it's only 2,800 kids, as you said, but would you say that that's a pretty common major there, or would you say that kids are spread out not just on the liberal arts spectrum, but also into STEM fields as well?
Yeah. So, art history major is pretty small. Art history majors have to write a thesis. And it's basically this class that teaches you how to write an art history thesis. And it's all of the art history majors at Colgate that are seniors. And
In one class.
in one class.
Wow.
I know, but you'd think that there'd be 50 and there
Mm-hmm.
is 20 of us.
Wow.
It's crazy because I did ask a friend. I said, how is this possible? This cannot be just the art history majors.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, no, it really is. I know for film and media studies, for example, not many people are in that major class. I believe that was the major, film and
Mm-hmm.
media studies. I'm not positive. But anyway, for art history, it is really small. So
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the students are econ majors. I'm not so sure in terms of the science realm what
Mm-hmm.
that looks like, but also poli-sci majors, a lot of poli-sci majors and English majors,
Mm-hmm.
I think art history is definitely a little niche, but it's really good. I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm. How would you say that having such a small class size, not just in that thesis class in particular, but I would imagine in the rest of the courses in your field, has it impacted your instruction, your access to professors? Has it, helped you like get closer with your fellow students? Has it, I feel like in some areas that could like foster like rivalries in competitive environments like that. How would you say that having such a small, tight knit group has really influenced your education purely?
Okay, so I love having small classes. I love being able to talk to my professor after class, scheduling meetings, walking in, even if it's past their office hours. Sometimes professors will stay and talk to me. The professors at Colgate are amazing. I have such respect for them, and I think that they really care about their students. And they're great teachers. You know, I feel like I've walked away with such a great understanding about the material each semester that's covered in the classes. And also with my dean, I have a dean who I meet with every week. And she checks in on me. She, you know, asks me questions, makes sure everything's good. So I do like that professors, my dean, they're all kind of watching out for me and making sure that I can talk to them whenever, or if I have any questions, I can go to them. And it feels, it's like a huge safety net, if that makes sense. Having those people constantly checking up on you is just really nice, in my opinion.
Hmm. Was that something that you really were seeking out when you were strategizing how to get into not just Colgate, but you mentioned Bates and some other smaller liberal arts schools as well? Was that something that was like really intrinsic about what you wanted out of your college experience, or was it more, you could find a way to thrive in that environment, or if you had to go to a big school where those professors weren't so accessible, you could make that work as well?
Um, I mean, again, my high school personally was really small. There was about 80 kids per grade. And I really did like having kind of that student teacher relationship. I thought that was a great aspect of going to a small school. And so when I was looking at colleges, that definitely played into it, into my decision. So yeah, I think that, again, I just think having that relationship is so great. And I'm not 100% positive whether people who go to bigger schools are able to have that relationship. I don't know for sure, but I know at Colgate, most people walk away with a great relationship with their professor.
Hmm.
And I also don't want to speak for other schools because I don't know how that works, but I do know that with small liberal arts schools, there's definitely that emphasis on fostering a good relationship with both any of your resources, your professors, your dean. Um, yeah.
Gotcha. So we're just about out of time, but before we go, I wanted to ask you if there was one single piece of information that a current senior who's looking at Colgate and really wants to go there, what would you say the most important thing that they should know about the school, about the application process, anything that, in your experience, you would give as advice?
Wow, that's a loaded question. um, I guess just, you know, really consider kind of the social atmosphere and what that could mean for you. And recognize that maybe if you come from a smaller school, what that transition would look like. Um, and also just know that Colgate is a really beautiful school and the professors are amazing. So, um, I don't know, that hands-on experience is incredible. So yeah, I think that's what makes Colgate special.
Gotcha. Well, Ruth, thank you so much for coming on today, and I wish you the best of luck in the remainder of your school year.
Yeah, thank you.